Hey guys, now we are adding some white charcoal to our dark charcoal on a mid-tone paper. And what I'm using here is a Canson flannel gray. And see, when we were on white, all we did was use dark charcoal to make the paper darker. But now we're adding some white because the paper is not white. So remember our little value scale. What's important now is to think the paper serves as our in-between tones, our midtones. So we've got white charcoal, obviously to lighten the paper, and dark charcoal to darken the paper. What's in between is just the paper itself. So now it's like we're adding a third value to keep track of, and that's just the paper itself. So how does this work in practice? We'll do a quick sphere. And I mean quick. I've already drawn a circle here. We've got that base that we're also drawing. And now we're going to start this off just like when all we had was the sphere in black. Okay, I was talking about shadow, cast shadow, and there's a trick to cast shadow which I never mentioned. Like, depending on where your light source is, let's say it's here. There's a trick to lining up cast shadow, and that's, and I'll do it very lightly, and that's drawing a line from your light source through your object to where the cast shadow would end up. So technically I'm a little long over here, but see what I mean? And it's almost like a perspective thing, like kind of how we do in perspective. But you know, if there were a light bulb right here, you could see how it would cast a shadow from this object, starting here and ending there. But that's not so important right now. So again, I've got my sphere, I've got my cast shadow, or my coarse shadow, soft line, coarse shadow, cast shadow. Oh, I've got that pedestal thing down there. Okay, I'm blending. And you know all this stuff. This is all from last week. Really hammer in that coarse shadow. Now, the difference here, and what I want to talk about, is using white. Because what do we have so far? We have dark tones. You know, our core shadow is the darkest, our cast shadow is the other darkest. And what we have here in this part that I didn't even touch is all mid-tone, as in just the paper. The paper is mid-tone. So now we start adding some white. Now white charcoal just like dark charcoal, And let me see, I'm just getting a surface there on my piece. I don't want that side, I want this side. White charcoal is the same as dark, as in it's got to be blended in. And obviously you don't want to use the same stuff that you're using to blend your dark charcoal, because you really don't want to mix white and black charcoal. When they kind of mix together, you get a muddy mess. In fact, I keep my white charcoal supplies and dark charcoal supplies completely separate. I've got a white or a chamois just for dark charcoal. For white charcoal, I just use paper towel. I even have separate erasers for the two. So, white charcoal also comes in pencils and compressed. Right now I'm using compressed. And it's the same process as the dark, whereas you're blending what's more important with the white is getting a pinpoint highlight. You don't want to use, now I've spread white all over this, but really a lot of it ends up getting rubbed off. What you really want to hammer in and blend in is a pinpoint highlight, and that's really all you need. The rest of this white will sort of fall away. You got to keep in mind there's a mid-tone between the white and the dark, and that's simply your paper. See that? I'm just wiping that stuff off. So white you use, sparingly. And now you account for there being that third tone, which is your paper. Just like this part. Black, gray, white, really. And you can use, oh boy, I let this go. I really let my shape go here. That would be background. Which I'm just doing super quick like that. You've seen me do background. Super messy. You can also use your white. You can use your white to achieve a little bit of contrast. Doing like a vignette, we call it. Just kind of adding some white. On that table. Because that table is somewhere here. Remember? And just like dark, you blend that. But you don't really want to mix dark and light. My shadow should not be straight. Shadow should have some curve to it. Remember, shadows sharper and darker the closer you are to your object. White, you don't need any white in your reflection. you know, your reflection of light off the table, that would be too much. Your main white, your highest highlight, and just like we achieved that when it was white paper, our highest highlight was that spot where that light is hitting that object. And you can use it in some other ways, you know, table might be bright through there, but it's not as important as nailing that pinpoint highlight and letting everything else fade. Of course, I would use my blending stumps. Boy, I even keep different blending stumps specifically for white. So there's a really warped sphere because I've got this GoPro in my face. Yeah, right. Excuses, right, Ken? Anyway, so that's white charcoal and black charcoal on toned paper. The most important thing is think of the paper as your in-between value between black and white. Cool? Cool.